This video will cascade. It is going to start with what you know, but by the time we're done, we'll have went far, straight into the future character arcs of the game, the deeper aspects of the lore, and yes, future expansion themes. So get ready for the Army of the Black Moon, the upcoming Alliance Divide, Elune, and far more. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Warcraft video. Battle for Azeroth will not last forever, and once it's over, the landscape of Warcraft will be different. The Horde will be reformed with a new war chief, the Alliance will experience a divide, and that's all while the cosmic elements of the Warcraft universe are becoming more and more important, with patch 8.1 of course dropping major hints about Elune, hints that do compound on all that Blizzard have been foreshadowing over the last few years. Then, with Tyrande being conspicuously absent in patch 8.2, the stage is set for her to be a major future character who will drive the lore. To do this, she's going to need to be productive, and she's going to need great branding because she's probably going to be going against her king. Luckily for her, she can get 2 free months of Skillshare using my link down in the description below. Skillshare is an online learning community with over 26,000 courses for only $10 a month on their premium subscription, which is great, but you can do even better by using my link. The first 500 people who follow it will get 2 months for free. Tyrande needs her brand to be on point, and that's why her and you should check out Design Like Draplin. Aaron Draplin is one of my favorite people at Skillshare. His new Skillshare Original course gives you a fantastic look at how he works, covering tips for before, during, and after the design process. It's over 2 hours, it's all broken up into easy to digest chapters. It's just brilliant. As for Tyrande's other issues, well, I think some attentiveness and productivity training from Kevin Siskar would do her just fine. So, there's so much there, the price is super low, my code gets you 2 free months, they massively help out this channel, so thank you to them for supporting the team, and with that, let's get into the video. First, game director Ian Hazzikostas said that the Alliance will experience internal fractures in the future. He did literally say that, and given all that has happened in-game, and the state of the lore, plus their decisions with patch 8.2, I really do think things are fairly clear. Based on the latest Saurfang cinematic and the content of patch 8.2, we can be pretty darn reasonable that the Horde will return to its core values, almost certainly with Bane Bloodhoof being set up as the next war chief. As for the future of the Alliance, that is a lot less clear, other than us knowing that a divide will form from Ian. Now, Tyrande, I believe, will be a central figure in this divide. In a recent interview, Blizzard said that Tyrande is not in patch 8.2 because they want to focus on Sylvanas and Ashara. That's a fairly strange move, considering Tyrande and Ashara's storied history with each other. In the same interview, they said that Tyrande had her vengeance, and that's something that is just clearly not the case when you look at the state of her character in the game right now, and how the entire Night Warrior arc and the implications of that transformation are unresolved. Oftentimes, you see, Blizzard will omit a character from a patch because they know they only have so much screen time, and they have maybe got big plans for that character in the future. Now, given how it makes sense for Tyrande to be included in 8.2, I mean, it makes so much sense for her to be there, yet she isn't. It seems like that's the reason why she's not there, that she will be an important character in the future that Blizzard will use. Now, to know the future, we first have to look at the past. In patch 8.1, Tyrande decides it's time to strike against the Horde in Darkshore. Anduin, her king, strongly disagrees, but she goes against his orders. Anduin doesn't punish her. Even worse, Gen Greymane goes against Anduin's wishes. Now, soap opera stuff aside, this is 2 leaders of, I guess, vassal states disobeying their king. Blizzard could not have been more clear in showing us that they disobeyed their king. What they essentially showed was Anduin having soft, weak leadership, and that's just something that Varian would not have allowed for. What happened in Pandaria when Tyrande was going to act in an aggressive and ill-advised manner? Varian reined her in. When presented with a similar situation, Anduin was not able to do that, and even let Gen get away scot-free. Now here's the thing, Tyrande and Gen have strong similarities. They are both fueled by rage that's somewhat tied to Elune, and they have some similar aspects to their characters. So let's talk about that. In patch 8.1, Tyrande undergoes the Night Warrior ritual. This ritual turns her into the Night Warrior, which is basically an avatar of Elune's wrath, with it seemingly being the case that while Elune typically is a more tranquil character, that tranquility is backed up by the capacity for immense destructive force. Canonically, nobody has survived that ritual since the founding of the ancient Night Elf Empire, which is rumored to have been carved out in part through the use of the Night Warrior ritual. Now, what Tyrande has done is therefore extremely rare because of us knowing that, seemingly giving her access to the power of a near godlike being, at least being a hell of a lot more powerful destructively than she used to be, but it's not a neutral power. It's a power that's rooted in rage and in wrath and hate. Those things have to be aspects of Elune for that ritual to make sense. And this actually brings me on to the Worgen and their link with the Night Elves and of course with Elune. So in Cataclysm we learned that the original Worgen were created accidentally through Night Elf druidic experimentation. Now to tell that story succinctly, druids that channeled the power of the wolf Goldurin, they couldn't control their wolf form. So in an attempt to bring balance to that form, they created the Scythe of Elune by using the Staff of Elune and one of Goldurin's fangs. This whole thing went terribly though, as all flirtations in power tend to do in the Warcraft universe, resulting in them being basically locked in as feral Worgen. It backfired because Goldurin rejected Elune, which is what led to the Druids' plan failing and of course their fate. And that's the origination of the Worgen curse. Now for the character background here, Elune has basically always looked down on Goldurin for his inability to tame his rage, and actually Goldurin looked up to Varian Rin for his ability to sort of tame his bloodlust. So it's an interesting thing there. But anyway, the Lost Druids were sealed in the Emerald Dream and were later summoned to Gilneas on Gen Greymane's command to aid them against the Scourge, and of course we all know how that went. The feral Worgen were able to keep their sanity temporarily through an alchemical cure, but they were only able to truly return to balance through a Night Elven ritual, the one that the Gilnean Worgen went through near Duskhaven. So the Night Elves were able to restore the sanity to the Worgen, and then they offered them shelter in Darnassus while Gilneas was in ruins, which is of course why Gen and co care about Darnassus so much. So as characters, both Tyrande and Gen have similar motivations when it comes to the fate of Darnassus, but also with the sort of themes of having a strong inner rage that forms a part of their being. And in both cases, there's somewhat of an Elune link. In Gen's case, yes, it's Goldurin's rejection of Elune and the Staff of Elune being involved with the creation of the Scythe of Elune, but in Tyrande's case, it's, Elune's acceptance of her potential for rage as evidenced by the existence of the Night Warrior persona. So they're both well-aligned characters, politically and thematically, but there's more to it than that. And this is where we jump off in two different directions for this video. The first one will be a lot more direct to the current story and the faction split. The second one, though, will be a bit more about the Elune stuff and is somewhat more wacky. Factions first, though. By the end of BFA, the Horde will almost certainly reform in a manner that is in keeping with its founding values. Thrall will likely not lead the Horde, as evidenced by what he said in the cinematic, and Saurfang just doesn't seem to be the type who would want leadership. Bane Bloodhoof, however, seems like a pretty likely candidate based on how much Blizzard have been building him up in-game recently, and also the drama that they can mine from him. So what do I mean by that? Well, Bane and Anduin are personal friends. So having the leader of the Alliance and the leader of the Horde be personal friends, that is something that is somewhat a little bit new, and a large potential source of character conflict. Now, here's the thing. Tyrande is still going to want vengeance on the Horde for Teldrassil. She'll be in her Night Warrior persona, fueled by rage, and based on his actions, so too will Gen Greymane. Both of them disobeyed Anduin directly and headed off to Darkshore in patch 8.1. Gen is tied down in Nazjatar during 8.2, Tyrande is presumably skirmishing with her new Army of the Black Moon, and patch 8.3 likely involves us having to stop something rather cataclysmic in nature, so, well, I doubt the Alliance fracture will happen then. While Sylvanas might be gotten rid of, they won't have their opportunity for vengeance on the overall Horde. In patch 8.2, Gen even questions Jaina helping to free Bane. He sort of still regards him as just being, an enemy leader. So what if Tyrande and Gen were to go rogue, disregarding Anduin's political stance, and maybe attempting to go for the Horde after patch 8.3, at a point when Bane, Anduin's friend, is War Chief. Now, some of that you may think is a little bit of a stretch, but I would remind you just how character-driven Blizzard are with the plot these days. And when you look at all that they've done recently, this would be a source of dramatic moments that would get people talking and tweeting. I mean, sure, for better or worse in terms of storytelling, but it seems to be the mode of storytelling that Blizzard want to engage in. Then, of course, we also do know that an alliance fracture is coming. The devs have said that. And when you look at all the characters in the alliance, Tyrande and Gen are the most likely suspects. It would tie back to the events of Darnassus, so I think it makes a lot of sense, unless maybe they have, Moira do something shifty behind people's back, but I don't think that would have the impact Blizzard would want. So dramatically, having Anduin Wrynn be torn between his commitment to the New Horde, which he technically started with Saurfang, that is also led by his friend, and then two of his client states. Well, there's a lot Blizzard could do there in terms of drama and story. More than you may think, and that's why we need to talk about Elune. Because, of course, those two characters have ties to Elune, especially Tyrande and the Night Warrior. There are many different theories about Elune's nature. Khadgar is pretty sure that Elune created the Prime Naru. That's fairly major, as it would have Elune being a very, very, very powerful fundamental being. It would not be absurd, therefore, to speculate that Elune is a Light Lord, i.e. a mirror to a Void Lord, or maybe she's a Void Lord but in its light cycle, much like how a Naru can be in the Void part of its cycle. Indeed, Xal'atath does actually refer to the Naru as long-lost brethren, which could tie into their creator, Elune, being a flipped over Void Lord. So that's one thing that could be the case. All that said, there's also potentially a strong Titan connection. Why? Well, let's think back to Legion's Pillars of Creation. The Tidestone of Golganath, the Aegis of Agrimar, the Eye of Aman'Thul, the Hammer of Khaz'goroth, and the Tears of Elune. 5 Titan artifacts, but only 4 of them named after members of the Titan Pantheon, the 5th being named after Elune. As for why Norgannon is missing there, well, I would speculate that the discs of Norgannon are his Pillar of Creation and just weren't relevant to Legion and, were maybe left out. Maybe it's because they only wanted 5 for the story. Anyway, so which Titan would the Tears of Elune be connected to? Well, through elimination and, character themes, it's clearly Eonar. Indeed, when moving on to the Antorus raid, and when we tried to find Eonar's spirit, where did we find it? We found it on a planet or moon called Elunaria. Now, Elune is of course associated, with the moon, but if Elune was a Titan, then perhaps Elunaria is the world from which she was born. Maybe Elune is a rogue Titan, maybe some sort of grey Jedi-like thing, because sure, Elune seems to be all pure and good and all of that, but the Night Warrior clearly shows that there are many aspects to Elune, so that would fit the sort of grey Jedi sort of idea. Now, the core point here is that Blizzard will likely do something very large with Elune. That's probably why they've been teasing Elune so much recently. At the same time, they have greatly increased the connection between Tyrande and Elune. And then given what we know about the future alliance fracture, when you logic it out, Tyrande is almost certainly going to be involved. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be the core of the next expansion, but I do think it will be an important B-plot, right? An important plot line that maybe will feature a bit more heavily in the expansion after 9.0, maybe if that's an expansion that takes us to more cosmic locations, which, given what they've established in Legion, does seem to be fairly likely indeed. So, please let me know what you think about all of these theories and where you think these things are going. A massive thank you to Skillshare, who really do support this channel and support my team and allow us to do things we otherwise wouldn't be able to. So you can check out their link down below. And with that, thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.